Test, test. Adele, I'm giving you the microphone for good news. Right, you want a mini Sunday morning? Good Shabbos. I like to hear that word Shabbos. Shabbat's okay. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Good to see everybody here tonight. As we always do, we set off a little nigun. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. 2, 3, 4. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da da. Yai da 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 da. Da da. Yai da da. Yai da 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 da. Bim bum bim 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 bum bim 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 bum bim bum bim bum bim 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 bum bim 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 bum boom boom. Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat shalom, yes, Shabbat 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 shalom. Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat shalom, yes, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. And now we do some good news. We always want to hear some good news for this week, this past week, the upcoming week. And I'm going to ask Adele, our president, to walk around and see what we have for good news.
So you need to state your name, make sure you speak into the microphone, and tell us your good news.
My name is Loretta Band, and on August 1st, we became grandparents to Marissa Charlotte, daughter of Stephanie and Brian, and sister of Ezra. We're going to call her Mari, and everybody's healthy.
Congratulations.
I have good news also. My name is Rich Band, and on August 14th, Loretta and I became grandparents again with Archie Palmer Band. And everyone is doing well also. Everyone is healthy. Everyone is home. And so all good news.
My name is Richard Strauss, and I have good news as well. Last Sunday, my elder son, Jonathan, who's the CEO of the Midnight Riders, which is a not-for-profit organization started by a group of New England Revolution fans, and they've sponsored a golf tournament, and they raised $10,000, which they used to invigorate and restart a soccer program for underprivileged kids up in the Merrimack Valley area. And I'm very proud of my son. Also, on Wednesday, my wife and I celebrated our 53rd anniversary. Thirdly, we're blessed to have my good friend Robin Marie Finger with us from Brockton tonight.
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else on this side have good news? What about this side? So I have good news. It's okay. My name is Adele Lubarsky, and my good news is that I want to welcome Leah and Jared and Isabella to our service this evening. Isabella is 8 weeks old and is sleeping so soundly. So I'm trying to be very quiet when I'm over there so I don't wake her up. So that's my good news.
That's great.
And the other good news is Rabbi Perlman is having a wonderful time.
He actually is. He called me 6 times today to tell me how much fun he was having. So.
And he sent me pictures of everything.
Please join me on page 13 for the Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedkem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. On the bottom of page 13, let's read together in English. The sun on the treetops no longer is seen. Come, let us welcome Shabbat, the true queen. Behold her descending, the holy, the blessed, and with her God's angels of peace and of rest. Come now, dear queen, with us abide. Come now, Shabbat our bride. Shalom Aleichem, angels of peace. Top of 14. Yedid nefesh avarachaman mishoch avdach el ritzonach yaharut avdach kimo ayal Yishtachave el muhadarach, Yerab lo yedidutach, Minofet suf v'chol tam. Yadadai dai dai dai, yadadai dai dai dai, yadadai dai 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 dai, yadadai dai dai dai, yadadai dai dai dai, yadadai dai 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 dai, yadadai dai dai dai, yadadai dai dai dai, yadadai dai 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 dai, yadadai dai dai dai, yadadai dai dai dai, yadadai dai 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 dai. And on the bottom of 14, let's read together the Sabbath prayer. Dear God, help us now to make this a new Shabbat. After noise, we seek quiet. After crowds of indifferent strangers, we seek to touch those we love. After concentration on work and responsibility, we seek freedom to meditate, to listen to our inward selves. We open our eyes to the hidden beauties and the infinite possibilities in the world you are creating. We break open the gates of the reservoirs of goodness and kindness in ourselves and in others. We reach toward one holy, perfect moment of Shabbat. And on page 15. Lechu niranena, lechu niranena, lechu niranena, ladonai. Lechu niranena, lechu niranena, lechu niranena, ladonai. Naria, naria, letzo yeshenu nikadma. Fana betoda, naria, naria, letzo yeshenu, bizmi wrote naria lo. Oh, lechu niranena, lechu niranena, lechu niranena, ladonai. Lechu niranena, lechu niranena, lechu niranena, ladonai. And silently to the bottom of the page. Arbaim shana kut bedor, va'omaram toev levavhem, vehem lo yedu drachai. Hashem nishbati v'yapi, im yivo'un el menuchati. And on 16, let's read responsibly in English, Psalm 96. Sing a new song to Adonai, acclaim Adonai, all people on earth. To Adonai, proclaim each day God's awesome might, announce to the world God's glory and wonders. For Adonai is great, deserving of praise. Adonai alone is to be revered as God. All the gods of the nations are nothingness. Majesty and might accompany God. Splendor and strength adorn God's sanctuary. Claim God's majestic power, acknowledge God's glory, and bring him tribute. Worship Adonai in resplendent reverence, and let the earth tremble in God's presence. Declare to the world Adonai is sovereign. God has studied the world which stands firm and judges all nations with fairness. Let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad, let the sea and all it contains exult. Let field and forest sing for joy. Adonai comes to rule the nations with faithfulness. Yismechu hashamayim b'tagel haaretz, Yeram hayam umlo, Yalo sadai v'chol asher bo, Asheranenu kol hatzeyar. Lifnei Adonai kiva, kiva lishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel b'tzedek, v'yamim be'emunato. And now let's turn to page 20, if I could ask you to rise, from Mizmor David, a Psalm of David. Mizmor David, Havul Adonai b'nei elim, Havul Adonai kavod va'oz, Havul Adonai kevod shimo, Ishtach Havul Adonai v'hadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, El hakavod hirim Adonai, Adonai al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai b'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vayishabir Adonai et azeh halvanon, Vayakidem kimo egel, Levanon v'Sirion kimo, then re'emim, Kol Adonai chotzev lavotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yechol elayalot, vayechesof ye'arot, uvhechalo kulo mer kavod. Adonai lamavu yashav, vayeshav Adonai melech liolam, Adonai oz li'amo yitain, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. You may be seated. We continue with Lecha Dodi on page 21. Lecha, we do every other verse. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamo v'zacho b'dibor echad, Hishmiyanu el hamyuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shemu tiferet v'lithilah. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Migdash melech ir melucha, Kumitzi mitoch hafecha, Rav lach shevet v'yemek habacha, V'hu yachamol alayechem la. Lecha Dodi lekrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoriri, Kiva ore kuma ori, Guri uri shidaberi, Kivod Adonai alayk nigla, Lecha Dodi lekrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. V'hayulim shisa sho sayich, V'rachaku komev alayich, Yasis alayich Elohayich, Kim soscha tanal kala, Lecha Dodi lekrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. And of course we rise and face the rear of the sanctuary. Boi v'shalom materet bala, Gam b'simcha u'v'tzala, Tochem munei am sigula, Boi chala, Lecha Dodi lekrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. You may be seated. And now, Psalm 92, a song for Shabbat, we read responsively. It's good to acclaim Adonai, to sing your praise, exalted God. And the melody of the harp. Your works, Adonai, make me glad. I sing with joy of your creation. The thoughtless cannot comprehend. The foolish can't fathom this. Their doom is sealed. Your enemies, Adonai, your enemies shall perish. All the wicked shall crumble. I've seen the downfall of my foes. The righteous shall flourish like the palm tree. They shall grow tall like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they will thrive in the courts of our God. Even in old age, to proclaim Adonai is just my rock. And 4 lines from the bottom on 23. You can join me. Tzadikatama yefrach, ke'erez bavanon yeskeh, shetolim beveit Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu, Yafrichu od yenuvun beseva Deshenim verananim yeyo lehagid Ki Ashar Adonai Tzori Velo Avlatabo. In page 24, we read silently. Edotecha ne'amnu mi'olaveka nava kodesh Adonai li'orechamim. And now, mourners Kaddish, those observing your side, please join me in the middle of page 24. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'yalma divra kirute v'yamlich malchute. V'chaye chon of yomei chon of v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. Bagalau v'zman kariv v'yamru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam omei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ah v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal. Shemei dekucha barichu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, tamiram b'yalma v'yamru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. O says shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen. And now we turn to page 28, if I could ask you all to rise for the Baruch. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach. Baruch Adonai hamvarach leolam va'ed. You may be seated. And we continue silently on page 28. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila Adonai tzavot shemo, El chai v'kayam tamid yamloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. Join me on page 29. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadita. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, v'shachveinu v'kumeinu, nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismak b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Ki hein chayenu, v'yorech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam v'layla, v'yavatcha taseh mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Page 30. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai echad. V'yahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol avavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha Uvelechtecha v'derech, uv'shachbecha, uv'kumecha, ukashatam liot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, uketavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uv'isharecha. And we read the bottom paragraph silently, and by the way, tomorrow, that's our Torah reading, V'hayam Shemoah. למען ירבו ימיכם וימי בניכם על האדמה אשר נשבע אדוני אל אבותיכם לתת להם כימי השמיים על haaretz. And I want to say, then your days and the days of your children on the land that Adonai swore to give to your ancestors will endure as the days of the heavens over the earth, if you keep obey my commandments. And please join me on page 31. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'yamata alehem v'yasu lahem tzitzit al kanfei bigdeihem ledorotam benatnu al tzitzit hakana patil techelet v'haya lachem letzitzit uritem oto Uzachartem et kol mitzvot Adonai, nasitem otam belo taturu, achorei levavchem, v'achorei einechem, asher atem zonim achoreihem, leman tizkaru, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'tem kedoshim lelohechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzeiti etchem me'aretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'elohim ani, Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, emet. Page 32. Umalchuto b'ratzon kiblu aleihem. Moshe v'nei shelachanu shira, b'simcha rabba v'yamru cholam. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neda b'kodesh, nora tehilot, osef ele malchut karu v'necha. Bokeyam lefnei Moshe ze Elianu v'yamru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'nema kifada Adonai et Yaakov ugelo mir kazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai go'al Yisrael. Let's read together on the top of page 33. Help us, Adonai, to lie down in peace and awaken us again, our sovereign, to life. Spread over us your shelter of peace, and guide us with your good counsel. Save us because of your mercy. Shield us from enemies and pestilence, from starvation, sword, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, O God, who watches over us and delivers us, our gracious and merciful ruler. Guard our coming and our going. Grant us life and peace now and always. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Praise that you, Adonai, who spreads the shelter of peace over us, over all his people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. And now we rise for the Vishamru, top of page 34, please join me. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, hey, la'asot et HaShabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, hey, la'asot et HaShabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti liolam, oti liolam, oti liolam. Bishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, Shabbos la'asot et HaShabbat, l'dorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabbat, hey la'asot hashabbat, לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ביום תברכותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכם וביומכם ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולם יומיה. יתברך וישתבח, יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. ליהי לה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירם ביומה ויאמרו amen. And we remain standing for the silent Amidah. For the patriarchs, page 35A, if you want to include the matriarchs, 35B, and you continue on through page 38. When you're done, you may be seated. You may be seated. Let's read together in the middle of page 38 in English. My God, keep my tongue from evil, my lips from lies, and help me ignore those who would slander me. Let me be humble before all. Open my heart to your Torah, that I might pursue your mitzvot. Frustrate the desires of those who plot evil against me, and make nothing of their schemes. Act for the sake of your compassion, your power, your holiness, and your Torah. Answer my prayer for the deliverance of your people. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, my rock and my redeemer. O Hoseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yemaru. Amen. And may the one who brings peace to his universe bring peace to us and to all the people of Israel and to everybody who dwells everywhere. And let us say Amen. And now we'll do a little prayer for those who aren't feeling too well. And let me start off, and you can say a few names, and then I'll do the prayer. Misha Baruch Avotenu Avram Yitzchak Yaakov Sarivka Rachav Aleah, who Yavaruk Repay et, and feel free to say a name if somebody doesn't feel well. Bet kol hacholim b'kila kadosh hazeh kadosh baruch hu yimale rachamim aleim lazi kam l'rapal v'shlachem b'hirav fu shalema mina shamar fu sanav sroz agof b'tok shachol Israel shabbat him l'zokel fu shkor v'shlavos shag bagalaz makaribin omar amen. Mi shebeirach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength to bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi shebeirach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. With those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. If I ask you to rise, we'll turn to page 47 for the Vayechulu. Sing along with me, please. Vayechulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzivam. Vayechal Elohim bayom hashvi melachto asher asa. Vayishpot bayom hashvi mikom melachto asher asa. Vayevarech Elohim et yom hashvi vayikadesh oto kivo shavat mikom melachto. Kivo Shabbat mikom melachto, asher bara Elohim, asher bara Elohim lasot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'elahei avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'elahei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'elahei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'hanora, El Elyon konei shamayim v'aretz. You may be seated. Magen avod bidvaro, mechaye metim b'ma'amaro, Ha'el Hakadosh ein kamohu, Hameniach le'amo b'yom Shabbat kodsho, Kivam ratza lehaniach lahem, Kivam ratza lehaniach lahem, Lefanav navod b'irav v'fachad, V'nodeh lishmo b'chol yom tamid, me'on habrachot. El hahodaot Adon shalom, Mekadesh HaShabbat Mevarek Shvi'i Umeniach B'Kedusha L'Yamedu Shnei Oneg Zecher Lemase V'Reishit 48. Eloheinu v'lahevotenu, ritzei v'mnuchatenu, kodshenu b'mitzvotecha, v'techalkenu b'toratecha, sabenu mitzuvecha, v'samkenu b'shuatecha, v'tahel libenu, le'avdecha be'emet, Ve'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu V'yahava u'ratzon Shabbat kadshecha V'yinuchuva Yisrael Mikadeshei Shemecha Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat Yitkadav Yitkadav Shmei Rabbah B'yalma Tevrakru Teviam Lek Malchute Mechaye Chona V'mechona V'chay D'chobet Yisrael B'galav Zman Karev Yemaru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Li'alam Lamei Omaya Yitbarak V'ishtabak V'yitpar V'yitmamina Sevit David Talav Talav Shmei Rekudsha Brichu Le'elam Min Kol B'chatav V'shirata Tushbechata v'nekamata damiram b'yama v'yamaru. Amen. Titkabal tzalot hanavot on Chol Yisrael kadam avon divishmai v'yamaru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemai v'chaim aleni v'Chol Yisrael v'yamaru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mroma v'yaseh shalom aleni v'Chol Yisrael v'yamaru. Amen. Thank you for our wine distributors. I forgot to say, please distribute the wine, but you guys know. So thanks for doing that. So there's a choice between grape juice and wine, but to me, with the Manischewitz Concord grape, they both taste the same. 3.5% alcohol, maybe, I don't know. When I was younger, I used to make it a wine cooler. I'd put a bunch of ice cubes in there, and it was pretty good at the pool. If I could ask you to rise for the Kiddush as we honor Shabbat. Of course, wine is a symbol of joy, and that's why we make a Kiddush on these special occasions. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kadsho v'yahava ratzon inchilanu zikaron l'maaseh b'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'achata v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kadshecha v'yahava u'ratzon inkaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat. And you may be seated if you want to. So I just want to say a few words tonight. By the way, I made a joke. I said, oh, Rabbi Perlman calls me 6 times to tell me how much he's enjoying him. So I just want you to know, he's a really good friend of mine. And he calls, no, seriously, he calls me to see how my family's doing, how I'm doing, how everything is going. And he calls me to check in on me, and I love that. And I love the guy for that. I know he does it with you guys as well. So he does call me. I love it when he calls me. Just want to make that clear. Rabbi, if I made a bad joke, please forgive me. No, but seriously, thank you for calling me. And I called him too. If it wasn't for him, I would never got the lunch bunch on whatever it was, whatever with the computer. Here he's sitting somewhere, I don't know, I think he was enjoying himself. From his cell phone, he was able to get to the computer and make the corrections. I said, Rabbi, you are unbelievable. There's definitely another job for you if you decide to retire from being a rabbi. But we won't bring that up right now. So yesterday, we had a lunch bunch. It was Thursday. And we had a nice little group with us. And I have to say, we talked about King David mostly. It started off, I know you were online. Thanks for joining in. You know, I started off with the prophets. It was Eli, then it was Shmuel, and then we got to the whatever, and then David became a popular subject. And Rhonda made an interesting point. It said, gee, you know, he really wasn't a very good parent because of all his kids started to fight with each other, and literally they got killed and that sort of thing. And we said, well, it really wasn't because he wasn't a good father. It's because he made other choices that were not good. And because of those choices that he made, he got punished pretty much. And his kids were part of the punishment. And I'll get into that in just a second. So it all had to do with choices. Like I'll use King David as an example, and then we'll use ourselves as an example. David learned how to use the slingshot because when he was taking care of the sheep out in the field, there were bears and lions. I didn't know there were bears and lions in the Middle East, and he learned how to use a slingshot and whack them with a rock so they would spit out the sheep or whatever it was, or kill them, or at least enough to save the sheep. So that was a good choice. Using it against Goliath, when he used the slingshot to go after him, he had the Spirit of God. That was a good choice. He learned to play the harp. It was a good choice for him because King Saul, after he lost the Spirit of God and it went on to King David, he had these horrible headaches, migraines. And he asked, is there anybody, the servants, who could play the harp? And they say, they said, David can. He was a lad at that time. It was a good choice that he learned how to play the harp. As a king, now you have to realize now years later, he got appointed the king. He was anointed after Saul was no longer the king. He had to judge the people. He made good choices. God said, you serve the people with justice and righteousness. That was good choices. Also as king, he looked at his neighbor's wife taking a bath on her roof. Bathsheba. That was a bad choice. Turn the other way. He brought her to his chamber. She became pregnant. Very bad choice. He says, what am I going to do? So he brought the husband along, said, take some time off from being in the army. Go to your wife. He wouldn't. He would sleep on the floor with his men. He says, how can I go to my wife when I have my fellow military people fighting in the field? I'm not doing it. And he would sleep on the earth. He wouldn't go. He wouldn't do it. So David said that plan did not work. So he had him go to a battle where his imminent death would happen, and he got killed. Very bad choice. God said, I don't like what you did. And he said, because of that, your family will have disarray, and there will be the sword in your family for all time. And not only that, the son that you made her pregnant with is going to die too. So I have to say to you, we make choices in our lives. And I'm going to bounce around a little bit here. And there are consequences. There's good consequences because when David made good choices, the children of Israel thrived. They won all their battles against the Philistines. And whatever it was, their fruit and their produce was great. But when he did something bad like that, even the children of Israel suffered for it. So this week's Torah portion, interestingly, is called Akev. Akev means heel. So you have to say that's a little strange kind of a word to use for a Torah portion chapter. It says, Akev tishme'un. It means if you should even listen and really pay attention to the minute details of the laws, then God will bless you. So Akev has this kind of interpretation, if you will sincerely obey the laws. But the word Akev, if you know who was named Akev, Yaakov, he was named heel. That was his name, heel. Because when he was born, he grabbed the heel of Esav, his older brother, while he was being born, because he wanted to pull him back into the womb. He wanted to be the firstborn. I'm trying to visualize this. But anyways, since what the nursemaids, whatever they're called, saw this, they put a little ribbon on his wrist and said, "You're second born, but we're going to call you heel." But it actually became Yaakov, because when you put a yud in front of a name, it has the essence of God's blessings. So Yaakov was God's blessing. So he says in Akev, and this, we're going to read this tomorrow, children of Israel, you have a choice. I'm giving this, if you really adhere and obey the laws, that you would kick away with your heel that you seem insignificant. Even if you obey those laws, then you will be blessed. If you don't, you will surely disappear from this land. So the children of Israel had a choice. What did they do? So what happened was, actually, when King David had his dynasty, there were some people who wanted to have their own dynasty. People were power hungry. They wanted to have their own dynasty. So Judah and Benjamin, the two tribes, had the Davidic dynasty, where King David was king. The others decided to leave, and it was during Solomon's time too. The son said, "We want to have our own group. We don't want to follow you anymore." And they left. They went north, the 10 tribes, formed their own group, built their own temple. And what happened? They lost themselves. They got lost. And what did they do? They started to worship idols. They made golden calves. Can you imagine this generation worshiping golden calves? That it was such a horrible thing when Moses came down from Mount Sinai, saw the children worshiping a golden calf, so the people said, "Take me back to Egypt." And he was so disgusted, he broke the tablets. And it didn't make any sense to these people. It didn't matter. So what happened to those laws? What do we call them now? The lost 10 tribes. Because they got assimilated within the Assyrians, and we don't know what happened to them ever since. So that was a bad choice. So I'm talking about choices right here. So Moses says, obey the laws, or you're going to get kicked out of the land. And unfortunately, that's what happened. I talked about it in a lunch and learn about a month ago about our fast days, because we had to get kicked out of the land because we did not obey God's laws. And it was because we worshiped idols. I have to tell you, there's something that really irritates me. I mentioned it yesterday. Knock on wood. What is that crazy thing? I have to ask you, who knocks on wood? Don't raise your hand. Don't do it in front of me. People can't even find wood. They knock on plastic. I mean, I'm sorry to say, if you do that, it's ignorant, it's stupid. Never do that. So I said to somebody, I said, knock on wood is paying homage to tree gods, because they used to worship trees. So they used the Asherah tree. It was the specific. And God said, if you see an Asherah tree and you go and conquer the lands, burn that tree down. And so people would knock on wood because they believe in the tree gods. Somebody said, no, that has to do with Christianity and the cross. I said, so? Which is worse? What are you doing? Are you worshiping the Christianity God, or are you worshiping the tree god? It's the wrong thing to do. And it's superstition too. Can you imagine that? Oh, I'm knocking here, and that's going to give me good luck in my life. So don't believe in that sort of crap. So anyways, really, don't do that ever again in your lives. So we have choices, and there's really kind of 3 categories that we have choices in. One is a choice of health. How do we want to behave? What do we want to eat? What do we want to exercise? Whatever it is that you think healthy is. If you go on Facebook now, every other thing comes on. I can't even see my friends anymore. It's all commercials on health. I guess I clicked onto the wrong site. And the other is spiritual. Spiritual is very important. That's a choice too. How do you want to believe in God? Of course, when I look at you people, you're here. That's beautiful. But there are some people I see once or twice a year. I'm wondering where their spirituality is during the rest of the part of the year. I'm not judging. They could be extremely spiritual, pray every single day, but I don't know. That's just a choice. The other choice that we have that we make is moral choices. What's right? What's good? What do we do in business? How do we treat our fellow human being? Do we treat them with respect? What message do we give our children when they get raised? So I have a lot of situations where I hear that a grandchild is maybe trying to make a difficult choice, and I speak to the grandparent. I know a lot of you are grandparents, so you'll identify with me. Grandparent says, it's not for me to say. I'm not the mother or father anymore. And I say, you have more experience than your kids have for the grandkids. This is a time for you to speak up. If you don't speak up, when are you going to speak up? This is the time. That's a moral issue that we really have to make some tough decisions with. And then we have to say, if we make some choices and we regret the choices, when do we make a change in the choices? Do we wait till bad things happen and then we say, oh, I should have said something, I think I'll say something now? Or do we finally say something before a bad thing could happen? I see a newborn over there. You got some choices to make. Good choices, because you're here. That's a great choice. No, and then what are the outcomes of our choices? When we make certain choices, whether it even be physical or spiritual, do we find that we regret those choices? And we're human, and we're so fortunate, and this is going to be a beautiful Yom Kippur speech, but we have an opportunity to say, I made some bad choices. I'm going to change my choices. I'm going to become a different person. And I want you to know it's never too late, no matter how old you are, to make some good choices. And when you change your choices and make good choices, not only will you benefit, but your children, your grandchildren, and the community will benefit from those choices. I'll stop there. Shabbat Shalom. I chose to stop at that moment. If I can ask you to rise, please, for the Aleinu on page 51. Aleinu l'shabech ladon hakol, latet gedula liyotzeh bereshit, shelo asanu kugei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Noteh Shema, V'yosei Haaretz, U'moshev Yikaro B'shamayim Mima'al, Ushkinatu zo, Begavei Meromim, Hu Eloheinu ein od, Emet Malkeinu efes ulato, Kakatu b'torato, v'yadata hayom, yashevota el levavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim imal, v'al haaretz mitachat, ein od. Okay, I'll go a little bit. Kakatu b'toratech Adonai yimloch li'olam va'ed, v'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, U'shemo echad. You may be seated. So at this time, I want to remember the Yortzites for this coming week. Alex Kemp, Noah Kobrin, Elizabeth Kornitsky, Esther Willems, Vivian Altschuler, Lester Goldberg, Max Rothkampf, Leslie Denbo, William Waxman, Sarah Comack, Anna Baker, Victoria Yusha Morheim, Wolf Winokur. Are there any other Yortzites for this week? Yes. Larry Lambert. So may the faith that binds us to our loved ones be a continuing source of comfort as we invite those who mourn, those observing your side, to praise God's name with the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 52. Yit Gadal v'yit Gadash Shemei Rabbah B'alma Divra Kirite v'amlich Malchute V'chaye Chon uv'yomei Chon uv'chaye D'chol Beit Yisrael B'agalav Zman Kariv v'yamru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbam Mevarach Le'olam Omei Omaya Yit Barak v'yit Tabak v'yit Pa'ah v'yit Romam v'yit Naseh v'yit Adar v'yit Alev v'yit Halal Shmei Dekucha Barichu La'ela Min Kol Birchata v'Shirata Tush B'chata v'Nechamata Damiram B'alma v'Yamru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael v'Yamru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mramav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael v'Yamru Amen. And who are we honored tonight to make our announcements? What's her name? I know. Paula Dolan will make the announcement tonight. I'm just kidding.
Shabbat Shalom. This week, tomorrow morning services will begin at 9 a.m. 9:30 a.m. Sunday morning, I got to the bagels and study. That's for Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Yes, I will say the minyan. I will say the minyan right now. There will be a need for a minyan on Sunday morning if people are around to please help out. Evening minions are Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m. in person and virtual. Weekly at Temple Ner Tamid, we have Monday Zumba, Duplicate Bridge on Tuesday, Tuesday evening Israeli dancing, Wednesday's total body strengthening class. Thursday, August 25th, our religious school will be having an ice cream social for new and current students. If you know anyone interested in our school, please have them call the Temple office. Adult education has the opportunities for programming. Please check your weekly e-blast for more information. Save the date of Tuesday, September 6th for the Men's Club Barbecue and meeting. An adult education book club will be meeting on Thursday, September 15th, following evening minyan. The book is Eternal by Lisa Scottoline. Temple Ner Tamid will be participating in Lapin's Community Mitzvah Day on Sunday, September 18th. We will be collecting toiletries from today until September 18th for Haven from Hunger. Please drop off new items in the Founders Hall. Our religious school will be assembling and decorating bags on Sunday, September 18th. Start off the new year with this mitzvah. As you can see, there's lots of happening at Temple Ner Tamid. For more information, you can be found on the weekly e-blast, which comes out on Thursday. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you, Rabbi Bernie. And Rabbi Perlman, Shabbat Shalom to you.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks, Paula. Nicely done. So I just want to say the minion from Sunday morning is Felini Demule, who's always here for everybody else in their services. And we should try to be here and make sure she has a minion. And if you can't make it, maybe at least come on Zoom so we can have a minion. She's been doing services for years and years, and her husband. So let's try to make it for Sunday morning for her sake at least. Thanks. So page 53 will conclude with the Yigdal. Please join me. Yigdal Elohim Chai v'yish tabak nimtza v'yein el mitziuto echad v'yein yachid ki yichudon elam b'gam ein sof liachduto ein lo demut haguf v'yein no guf lo na'arok elav kedushato kadmon l'chol davar Asher nira rishon v'yein reshit l'reshito hino adon olam b'chol notzar yoreh gedulato malchuto shefan v'ato nitano elan segulato v'tif arto lo kam b'Yisrael kemo she'od Navi umabid et emunato, Torah temet natan liamoel, al yad neviyo neman beito, lo ya khalifa el, velo yamidato, Leolamim lezulato, Tofel v'yodeya, Sitarenu mabit, Softafa b'kadmato, Gomel ish chesed kimifalo, Noten l'rasha ra kirishato, Yishlach l'ketziam min mishichenu, Liftot mechakeket Yeshuato, Meitim Yechayel berov chasto, Baruch Adei Hashem tehilato, Meitim Yechayel berov chasto, Baruch Adei Hashem tehilato. And that concludes our service. Please join us at the rear of the sanctuary for an Oneg Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.